Hello, and welcome to the 8th lesson of the Language and Technology Scheme of Work. This is the last lesson you'll do before you move on to Language and the Media, which incorporates technology, power, gender, language change, and basically everything you've done so far, and applies it to language and the media text. So that's like websites and articles online. This is looking at social issues related to technology. So start off by reading the extract from Bridget Jones's diary. What potential social issues about the use of technology for communication are being presented in this fictional narrative? Now, she is emailing her boss at work, so you might want to think about power, gender, communication between the sexes, the appropriate use of emails and technology within the workplace. Those are the sort of things you might start looking at. And then in incorporating a text within a text, this is an email represented in a novel. Do you think the author is presenting email positively or negatively, and how can you tell? As always, sort of 5 minutes or so to do the task, 5 seconds on the video. So now that you've made your list of sort of issues that are being explored here, you can do two things. Firstly, you can start by adding anything else that you think might be an issue caused by technology communication. Then what you should do is look at the video on the screen. The video on the screen is about synchronous versus asynchronous. Now, synchronous is the idea of communication, or well, I guess it's anything, but in this instance, it's communication happening at the same time, so the idea of synchronicity. And asynchronous is communication that happens at different times. They both have their own reasons for A being used, and I guess B issues that come about from using them. So if you watch the video and add to your notes, and that will develop your understanding of kind of some of the issues that are caused by communicating online. So one of the biggest issues in terms of internet-based communication is politeness. Obviously, if you can't sort of see people and you can't get a sense of the tone and intonation and the non-verbal communication, things like that, it can be quite difficult sometimes to work out if someone's being polite or how we can manage politeness. So just spend a few minutes. What are the features of politeness that we demonstrate when we communicate with someone? Which of these features of politeness can be used online and which ones can't? Again, sort of 5 minutes or so, 5 seconds on the video. Okay, so we have two examples here, and admittedly they're both from forums, so they're admittedly they're not used as much as potentially, I guess, like chat apps and things like that are used, but they do highlight maybe some examples of how we utilize politeness. So we have the thing from a relationship advice forum. My guess is you're one of his several booty calls, and an emoji and the use of ellipsis there. And then the smaller text here, if you can't quite see it, it says here, I could well ask you the same question. The fact that he has spent his entire life here, held a British passport, and could not even speak a language that is considered essential in studying the Quran, would on the face of it confirm what has already been touched upon several times. He is of British nationality. No wonder you work in a factory with an imported workforce. To which one person responded, stupid woman, when are you going to open your silly eyes? Most of the child groomers held British passports. Were they British? No, they were not. They were Pakistani. And demanded translators to the court case, even though they had been born here. Now, obviously, that one's from a debate forum, so they're from two different forums. But within this, you see, I guess, elements of how politeness is used, and then quite clearly elements of how politeness is not used. So have a bit of a think. What do we see? Where do we see perhaps elements of politeness, and where do we see elements that are less polite? Okay, so I've highlighted some things for you. So it's interesting that the relationship forum has a few other examples of politeness where people are being nice. And I guess it's because people are opening themselves up to talk about quite personal, heartfelt things. So we have this post here. My guess is you're one of his several booty calls. My guess is actually hedging. So occasionally, I guess online, and you might do it within a chat app and a chat between friends. You might be more prone to hedging because at the end of the day, if you can't tell the tone, intonation, the various things about what you're saying, you are more likely to hedge what you're saying, so you don't sound as harsh and don't sound maybe as aggressive in what you're saying. Also, the use of here, it says emoticons, it's an emoji, of course. The idea being that that is used in that instance to show some sort of sympathy. Even the ... at the end, you could argue, is allowing the person who is responding, the person who's written the original post, to perhaps fill in the gaps. You're not spelling out necessarily the ins and outs of what's going on, so to speak. Now, with the second one, clearly this is more about impoliteness. We see this, what's interesting here is the idea that the emoji that was used before, obviously it's a different emoji in this one, emojis here are being used to antagonize. So obviously you can use emojis to wind people up. In politeness online, often, and again, this might not happen between you and your friends, it might be more in public forums and areas where you can talk to more people, like say, so comment sections on websites, for example. Impoliteness is often personally evaluative of a person's character. Notice how the person calls someone a stupid woman and says that she should open her silly eyes. So the idea being that in some ways, rather than run down someone's opinions and their ideas, people are being personally evaluative and quite cruel about the way they talk to people. It's just worth bearing in mind. I mean, you probably experience it yourself. Like online communication can be quite impolite, but there are ways we can maybe try and moderate our politeness somewhat. Now, this is the last part of what you're going to do, and it's just kind of having a look at this. And again, a bit like some other lessons where the bulk of the lesson is here. It's where you're going to learn by doing effectively. There's a Netiquette article that I've attached to the folder, which is from 2006, and it's a guide for how to be polite online in different forums, such as email, message boards, and instant chat. You might First, you want to think about actually why might you have had a Netiquette article needed in 2006? What is it about that time period? What does it suggest about the people using these kinds of internet, messaging services? Email, message boards, instant chat. I'd like you to choose a modern medium of communication. So you've got Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, etc. Whichever one you want to do. I'd like you to create your own little Netiquette guide for your chosen platform. Now, this is the article that you read is 14 years old. Sort of, to what extent are the guidelines still relevant? Are there things that are not necessarily factored into those guidelines in the way that things have changed? Do we need different guidelines for how to work to communicate online? You might have your own kind of unwritten rules of what is acceptable on Snapchat and what is acceptable on Instagram, and how best to communicate with people that you either do know or don't know. Again, it's one of those things where you probably have more ideas than I have actually when it comes to these things, because you'll have your own kind of unwritten social rules about what is the way to communicate. That is it for this lesson. It's quite a straightforward one in some ways, because once you've read the extracts and done the analysis, and then you go on and create your own Netiquette guide, that's basically it. I've put down on the in the folder a thing to read after this, and primarily all it says is, because this is the only lesson for this week, you had 3 last week, and you got a little bit of writing from last week, that actually what you should do now is make sure you're kind of ready to move on, because starting next week we'll be looking at language in the media, which will involve sort of more. Well, firstly, I guess it's more important because it's a module that you actually will be assessed on, but it will be incorporating, as I said earlier, the stuff from power, the stuff from gender, and some of the stuff from technology, of course. So the stuff you've done up till now is leading into the next scheme of work. As always, any issues, please let me know. Keep safe, look after yourself, and I'll post some more stuff next week. Okay, bye.